The Arizona sun blazed like a forge, its heat rippling over the jagged hills as Tahoma, a young Apache warrior, glided down a rocky trail, his moccasins whispering against the earth like a prayer. His leather pouch held healing herbs for the mission's dying horses, a fragile thread of peace woven by his father, Chief Kale, after months of bloodshed and mistrust. As he neared the adobe walls of San Solano Mission, a figure in white knelt in a garden, coaxing wildflowers from the cracked desert soil. Her presence hit Tahoma like a sudden wind, stirring his heart with a force he couldn't name. Was she a spirit sent to guide him, or a danger cloaked in light? Only the desert knew, and it wasn't telling. If this tale of forbidden love and sacred defiance grips your soul, smash that like button, subscribe for more stories that weave the heart of the American frontier, and drop a comment below to share where you're watching from, maybe the dusty trails of Arizona, the wide plains of Oklahoma, or a city far from the wild. Your support keeps these stories burning bright, so let's ride this journey with Tahoma and Sister Claire together. Tahoma, son of Chief Kale of the Chiricahua Apache, moved with the stealth of his ancestors, trained to tread as lightly as a hawk's shadow. His dark hair, bound with a leather cord adorned with a single eagle feather, swayed as he descended toward the San Solano Mission, a cluster of adobe buildings squatting in the Sonoran Desert's embrace. His father had sent him with a pouch of sagebrush, yucca root, and dried mesquite leaves, remedies his grandmother, Taza, had prepared for the mission's horses, struck by a fever that baffled the white settlers' doctors. The gesture was a calculated step toward peace after skirmishes with soldiers had left both sides wary, their trust as thin as a spider's thread. Tahoma's mission was clear: deliver the herbs, speak little, return swiftly. But the desert had other plans. As he approached the mission, the morning air carried the chime of bells, their metallic song echoing the flutes of Apache ceremonies in sacred caves. The sound stirred Tahoma, a reminder of the spirits that danced in the wind and stone of his homeland. He paused at the wooden fence, his eyes catching a figure in the garden. A woman in a white habit knelt among desert marigolds and prickly pear, her hands gently coaxing life from soil that seemed to defy it. Her movements were deliberate, reverent, as if she were praying with her fingers in the earth. Tahoma stood frozen, his breath caught, sensing something ancient in her presence, like a spring hidden beneath the dunes. Sister Claire, a 26-year-old nun from County Galway, Ireland, felt the weight of eyes upon her. She rose, brushing dirt from her hands, and met Tahoma's gaze. Her green eyes, flecked with gold, held no fear, though she'd been warned of the wild Apaches by the mission's priests. Instead, she felt a strange calm, as if the desert itself had whispered his arrival. Her white habit, stained with red clay, glowed in the dawn, and her Irish accent softened her Spanish as she spoke. "Good morning," she said, stepping toward the fence. "What brings you here?" Tahoma inclined his head, a gesture of respect taught by his mother. "Medicine for your horses," he replied, his Spanish clear but accented with the cadence of his native tongue. "My father, Chief Kale, sends this for peace." He extended the leather pouch, and when their fingers brushed, a quiet jolt passed between them, like a spark from a flint striking stone. Neither spoke of it, but both felt the earth shift beneath their feet. Father Thomas, a Jesuit priest with a gray beard and hands rough from years of labor, emerged from the mission stable, his face etched with worry. 3 horses had died, and 2 more wheezed with fever, threatening the mission's lifeline to supplies. He took the pouch, examining the herbs with cautious hope. "Your people know this land better than we ever will," he said, his voice heavy with gratitude. "Sister Claire tends our animals. Could you show her how to use these?" Tahoma nodded, his eyes flicking to Claire, who stood quietly, her hands clasped. They moved to the stable, a dim space smelling of hay and sickness. Tahoma knelt beside a trembling mare, his hands steady as he showed Claire how to crush the yucca root, mix it with sagebrush, and boil it into a thick, bitter tea. His voice was low, deliberate, each word a bridge between their worlds. Claire listened, her questions sharp and thoughtful. How much water, how long to steep, when to administer? Her reverence for the process, her respect for the plants, surprised Tahoma. She didn't just learn. She honored the knowledge, as if it were a prayer. By dusk, the mare's breathing eased, and a second horse lifted its head. Claire smiled, her face alight with relief. "You've saved them," she said, her voice soft but earnest. "Not me," Tahoma said, pointing to the pouch. "The land." She nodded, her eyes meeting his. "The land and the hands that know it." In that moment, a silent bond formed, not of words but of shared reverence for life. Tahoma left as the sun dipped below the hills, but the spark of that day lingered, a seed planted in the desert's heart. The next days drew Tahoma back to the mission with new excuses. More herbs, seeds for Claire's garden, knowledge of a hidden spring that could ease the mission's water shortage. Father Thomas welcomed him, seeing his visits as a path to peace with the Apache. But Tahoma's heart pulled him to Claire. She had come to Arizona 3 years prior, fleeing not a sinful past but a faith that felt hollow in Ireland's stone convent. She'd sought God in the desert's vast silence, but found only echoes until Tahoma's arrival. His stories of spirits in the saguaro, the stars, the wind, stirred her soul, revealing a divine presence woven into the earth itself. One afternoon, as they gathered sagebrush on a rocky slope, Tahoma paused, his eyes tracing the horizon. He spoke in his native tongue, a poem that flowed like a river over stones, its rhythm weaving through the air. Claire, unable to understand the words, felt their meaning in her bones, a song of life rising from barren places. "What does it say?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Tahoma translated, his dark eyes bright. "When rain kisses dry earth, flowers bloom where only dust stood. Beauty grows in the harshest places if someone loves it enough to see it." Claire's cheeks flushed, sensing the words were meant for her. She plucked a desert marigold, its yellow petals fragile yet defiant, and offered it to him. "In Ireland we say God hides in small, beautiful things. But here, I'm learning He's in the people who show us how to see them." Their eyes locked and time seemed to pause. The desert held its breath, and in that moment they crossed a line neither could uncross. What bloomed between them was no fleeting friendship, it was a love that challenged the foundations of their worlds. The desert nights draped the land in velvet, stars glittering like scattered embers. Tahoma knew each constellation, the bear guarding hunters, the weaver spinning fates, the eagle carrying prayers to the Great Spirit. One moonless night, he tossed a pebble at Claire's cell window, the soft clink a secret signal. She slipped out, her heart pounding, and found him by the mission's well, his silhouette sharp against the starlight. "Come with me," he whispered, leading her to a rocky outcrop overlooking the valley, where the desert stretched like a sleeping giant under the sky. He spread a woven blanket, its patterns telling stories of his people's hunts and visions. They sat, shoulders close, as Tahoma pointed to the stars. "That's the bear," he said, tracing a cluster. "It watches over those who walk the night." He spoke of the weaver, who wove destinies, and the eagle, who carried prayers. Claire shared tales of Irish saints, Brigid, who turned water to ale, Patrick, who drove out serpents. "Your Christ and our spirit aren't so different," Tahoma said, gazing at the Milky Way, the path of ancestors. "Both teach love is stronger than death, that we care for the weak." Claire nodded, her faith shifting like sand under wind. "In Galway, I prayed in cathedrals, but my words felt trapped in stone. Here, under these stars, I feel God listens." Tahoma took her hand, his calloused fingers warm against her skin. She didn't pull away. "Maybe the Spirit brought us together to show love knows no borders," he said. A coyote's howl rose, sharp and lonely, blessing their forbidden bond under the desert's endless sky. Their secret meetings became a sacred ritual, stolen moments when the mission slept. Claire waited by the well, her heart torn between fear of discovery and the joy of Tahoma's presence. One night, He brought a flute he'd carved from River Cane, its surface etched with symbols of wind and water. He played a melody that floated over the desert, a prayer-made sound, its notes weaving through Claire's soul. Tears fell, unbidden, as she listened. "What's this song?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It's what an Apache plays for the woman he loves," Tahoma said, his voice soft but steady. "It speaks of two spirits meeting beyond differences, parts of one whole, separated by time and distance." Claire closed her eyes, the music echoing in her heart. "Luminous," she murmured, testing the meaning of her name. "What's yours mean?" "Leader," he replied. "But with you, I'm learning my true path isn't war, but peace through understanding." Their faces drew close, starlight reflecting in their eyes. "We're breaking every rule," Claire whispered, her voice catching. "And making truer ones," Tahoma answered. Their lips met, a kiss that was both communion and transgression, a sacred act that bound their souls. It was a moment of fire, burning away doubt, leaving only the truth of their love. They spoke until dawn, planning how to hide their bond, knowing it was a fragile dream. Claire's vows of chastity and Tahoma's duty to his tribe stood like canyon walls between them, yet their love felt like a divine call, stronger than any vow or obligation. As the first light painted the horizon gold, Tahoma promised to return, and Claire slipped back to her cell, her habit heavy with the weight of a choice she hadn't yet made. The days that followed were a sweet torment. Claire moved through her tasks, tending the garden, praying with the sisters, with a glow that didn't go unnoticed. Sister Mary, a kind but observant nun, remarked on her renewed fervor, mistaking it for divine grace. But Claire's prayers were now pleas for guidance, for a way to reconcile her love with her faith. Tahoma, in the Apache camp, was restless, carving small wooden gifts, a hawk pendant, a star-shaped bead, for Claire, his heart full but burdened. His father, Kale, noticed the change, his sharp eyes missing nothing. "Is your soul sick, son?" he asked one evening, sharpening an arrowhead by the fire. "Maybe," Tahoma said, a faint smile breaking through. "But it's a sickness that makes me feel alive." A week later, Tahoma proposed a plan to Father Thomas. Claire could learn Apache healing methods to aid the mission's sick, a way to spend time with her openly while benefiting both communities. The priest, pragmatic and hopeful for peace, agreed, unaware of the deeper currents. Tahoma and Claire worked side by side in the mission's small infirmary, grinding roots, mixing salves, their hands brushing as they prepared remedies. Each touch was a spark, igniting their souls. The patients, poor settlers and a few native allies, noticed a warmth in their care, as if their love amplified their healing. One evening, as they pounded yucca roots for an anti-inflammatory poultice, Claire voiced her deepest fear. "What if this is a test from God? Something I must resist to prove my faith?" Tahoma paused, his hands still. "My people believe the spirits send what we need to grow, not what we expect. Maybe this love is your path, not a temptation." His words struck like a bell, resonating with a truth Claire had long buried. She'd spent years denying joy for holiness, believing sacrifice was the only path to God. But with Tahoma, she felt whole, her faith not diminished but expanded. "What if we're wrong?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "What if this damns us?" He took her hands, their fingers stained with earth and herbs. "Then we face that damnation together. One moment of true love is worth more than an eternity of false virtue." That night, under their starlit blanket, Tahoma gave her a gift, a mesquite cross, its surface carved with Apache symbols of earth and sky, a bridge between their faiths. "Don't abandon your God," he said, placing it around her neck. "Let your faith grow to hold new ways of loving the Spirit." Claire touched the cross, tears falling. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever held." "Not as beautiful as you," Tahoma said, kissing her with a passion that carried every poem he'd whispered to the desert night. Their dream of a shared life seemed impossible, yet under the stars, it felt within reach. But danger crept closer. Sister Agnes, A stern Spanish nun newly arrived from Santa Fe watched Claire with hawk-like eyes. She noticed the softened tone of Claire's voice when Tahoma was near, the way their gazes lingered. "You spend too much time with that savage," Agnes warned one morning after prayers, her voice sharp as a blade. "Our vows forbid such attachments, especially with pagans." Claire's heart clenched, but she held her ground. "I'm following Father Thomas's orders, learning their cures for the sick." Agnes's eyes narrowed, unfold. "The soul's healing matters more than the body's. I'll pray you remember your true vows." Claire sought Tahoma at their hidden meeting spot, her face pale with worry. She recounted Agnes's words, and his jaw tightened, his eyes scanning the horizon. "We knew this would come," he said. "What do we do?" "We could be more careful, meet less often," Claire said, her voice lacking conviction. "No," Tahoma said, his voice firm. "Hiding this would break us. We must be brave. Speak to Father Thomas, to my father. Ask for their blessing to build a bridge between our worlds." The idea was audacious, terrifying. It meant defying centuries of tradition, risking exile from both the mission and the tribe. "They could cast us out," Claire said, her voice trembling. "Then we face it together," Tahoma said. "A single flame can light a forest." They decided to approach Kale first, hoping his authority as chief would sway Father Thomas. "My father values peace," Tahoma said, stroking Claire's hair under the stars, her scent of sage and desert dust grounding him. "If he sees our love as a bridge, he might support us." "And if he doesn't?" Claire asked, her green eyes searching his. "Then we stand firm, even if the world turns against us." They kissed under the Milky Way, sealing a pact that would reshape their lives. 3 days later, Tahoma faced Kale in the chief's teepee, the air thick with sage smoke and the weight of tradition. Kale sat on buffalo hides, his pipe glowing, his eyes deep as canyons. "Speak, son," he said, his voice a low rumble. "You carry a secret too heavy for your heart." Tahoma sat, his posture respectful but his voice bold. "Father, I've found a love that could unite our worlds." He spoke of Claire, their starlit talks, their shared reverence for the sacred, the love that had grown like a desert bloom after rain. Kale listened, his face a mask, puffing his pipe as shadows danced on the teepee's walls. Silence stretched like a taut bowstring. Kale spoke, his voice slow, deliberate. "When I was young, love was simple. Marry within the tribe, raise children in our ways. But life teaches complexity. This woman of the cross, does she understand what it means to love an Apache? Will she abandon her world for ours?" "She doesn't abandon hers," Tahoma said. "We build a new one, blending our best. Her God and our spirit both value compassion, justice. She teaches me as I teach her." Kale rose, gazing at the camp, warriors sharpening blades, women weaving baskets, children playing under the constant threat of soldiers. "Our people fight to survive against her kind. You ask me to accept one of them. She's not like them," Tahoma said. "She serves the poor, loves this land as we do. She's a healer, not a conqueror." Kale's eyes held centuries of loss, lands stolen, brothers fallen, traditions fading like smoke. "Love can heal or poison. How do I know she won't dilute who we are?" "With her, I'm more Apache," Tahoma said, his voice fierce. "She sees our tradition's beauty with fresh eyes, strengthening my pride in them." Kale studied his son, seeing the leader he'd become. "You speak like a chief. But leadership means choices for all. If I allow this, what message do I send?" "Our ancestors adapted," Tahoma said. "They learned from others, kept our essence. My love for Claire is like a river, finding a new path but staying true." Kale closed his eyes, seeking the spirit's guidance in the smoke and silence. When he spoke, his voice was resolute. "Bring her here. I'll look into her heart. If she's sincere, we'll speak of a future." The next morning, Claire rode with Tahoma to the Apache camp, her habit replaced by a simple cotton dress, the mesquite cross around her neck. The camp sprawled across the valley, teepees and brush shelters alive with smoke and the hum of daily tasks. As they rode in, all eyes turned, children paused, warriors gripped their bows, women whispered. Claire felt the weight of their stares but kept her head high, Tahoma's words echoing, "Show your true heart." Kale stood outside his teepee, flanked by elders and warriors, his presence as commanding as the mountains. His gray hair, braided with bone beads, framed a face carved by time and loss. Tahoma helped Claire dismount, her legs trembling but her resolve firm. She bowed, a gesture from her days in European courts. "Chief Kale," she said in Spanish, her voice clear despite her nerves, "it's an honor to stand in your home. I come with respect for you and your people." Kale's eyes, sharp as obsidian, studied her. "You speak our tongue well. Who taught you?" "Your son," Claire said. "He's shown me not just words, but a new way to see the world, its beauty, its sacredness." A murmur rippled through the crowd, some curious, others hostile. Kale silenced it with a raised hand. "Enter," he said. "We'll speak as seekers of truth." Inside the teepee, firelight flickered on painted hides depicting battles and visions. Kale sat across from Claire, Tahoma at his side. "You claim to love our land," Kale said, his voice cutting through the smoky air. "But loving from afar is easy. Living it, becoming it, demands sacrifice." Claire breathed deeply, her hands clasped around the cross. "I left Ireland, my family, to follow a divine call. Here, I found it, not in the mission's walls, but in your son's wisdom, in the sacredness of this desert's dawns and plants." "Your God of the cross," Kale said, his tone probing. "Do you abandon him?" "No," Claire said, her voice steady. "My faith grows. Tahoma's spirit is my Christ's father, both teach love, justice. Our paths are parallel rivers from one source." Kale circled the fire, his steps rhythmic, deliberate. "My people have lost much to yours, lands, lives, traditions. Why trust you?" "I've been hurt by my own," Claire said, her voice soft but firm. "In Ireland, I was shunned for questioning, for seeking God beyond rules. I found more acceptance in Tahoma than in a lifetime among Christians." Kale sat, his gaze softening but unyielding. "Refuge isn't enough. Will you root here, learn our ways, raise Apache children?" "Yes," Claire said, her eyes unwavering. "This isn't loss, it's birth. The woman I was dies so I can become who I'm meant to be." Kale smoked his pipe, the silence heavy with the weight of decision. "I'll ask 3 questions," he said, his voice taking on a ceremonial cadence. "Answer truly." Claire nodded, her heart a drumbeat. "First, what if your God and our spirit conflict?" "I'll seek the truth uniting them," Claire said. "Love doesn't contradict itself." Kale nodded slightly. "Second, if white soldiers attack, some your kin, what then?" "I'll defend my new family," Claire said, her voice fierce. "Justice knows no color." A faint smile touched Kale's lips. "Third, if your children walk between worlds, neither fully Apache nor white, what will you do?" "I'll teach them difference is a gift," Claire said, her voice trembling with conviction. "They'll carry both traditions, building bridges where others see divides." Kale stood, joining their hands in his. "You, woman of the cross, will be called Sani Taa, eternal bloom, for your love grows in barren places. Tahoma, you've chosen well." He led them outside, addressing the tribe. "I present Sani Taa, seeking to join us through marriage to my son. Her heart is true, her wisdom deep. Who stands with them?" Taza, the tribe's revered healer and Tahoma's grandmother, stepped forward, her white hair glowing in the sunlight. "Have you sought the spirit's blessing?" she asked, her voice clear despite her age. Kale nodded. They showed 2 rivers joining, stronger together. "This union is a new survival." Taza touched Claire's face, her eyes searching. "You've known pain and chosen love. That's wisdom." To the tribe, she declared, "I accept her as my granddaughter." The tribe's resistance softened, warriors offered nods, women began whispering of wedding rites, Children stared with wide-eyed curiosity. But Claire knew the mission awaited. Back at San Solano, Father Thomas confronted her, Sister Agnes's accusations heavy in the air. "You've strayed," he said, his voice trembling with disbelief. Claire removed her habit, revealing a cotton dress she'd sewn in secret. "I'm not straying, Father. I'm living my faith fully. Tahoma's shown me God in all creation. Our love is sacred." "You'd forsake eternity for flesh?" Thomas asked, clutching her habit. Tahoma stepped forward. "Our love is spirit, not just flesh. It draws us closer to the divine." The mission bells tolled vespers, their song a farewell to Claire's old life. She and Tahoma returned to the Apache camp, where they wed under a canopy of stars, Apache chants blending with Claire's quiet prayers. Their love became a legend, a bridge between worlds, stronger than fear, deeper than tradition, eternal as the desert itself. Years later, under a mesquite tree, their daughter, Ai, played, her laughter a song of two worlds united. Claire, now Sani Tie, wove baskets, her hands calloused but sure. Tahoma carved, his eyes ever watchful. Their love, born in defiance, had become a beacon for others, proving that even in the harshest desert, love could bloom eternal. Drop the word Apache in the comments to show you loved this story. Thank you for joining Tahoma and Claire's journey. Subscribe for more tales of the frontier.